Hello and grand rising. Welcome to another Rebirth Sundays with me, Hank the Rebirth Coach. I'm super excited for you to be here today. This is something that I've been working on for actually quite a bit of time. I'm trying to kind of find like a good guide map or creating a good like guide map for the spiritual awakening process. I do want to make some disclaimers first and foremost. Everyone's process is different. Everybody's unique. So for one person it may take 8 months. Side note, if anybody's had a spiritual awakening in 8 months, please come talk to me because I would love to hear your strategies for getting through it, because boy, my personal spiritual awakening took several years. And that's just because I didn't really have anybody in my corner. I didn't know what I was doing. My fiance and I, girlfriend, when we were going through it, now fiance, we had to basically kind of like figure it out on our own. We didn't really have too many teachers, or we were getting information from different people and different teachers kind of just throughout the internet, you could say. So those are like that was like how long it took for me. um, the cool thing is that as a spiritual awakening, spiritual ascension life coach, but that also specializes in anything involving self and social anxiety, me being in your corner can basically kind of help speed you through the spiritual awakening process. However, you still have to do the work. In fact, if anything, just have to do more work and harder work. But that's basically the kind of the time frame. That's what I'm saying. The next thing is this process that I've kind of like road mapped is still in beta. So I'm still I will still be tweaking it for the next probably rest of my life. So let me know if how it feels to you, if it resonates with you. If it doesn't, I would love to get some, maybe even some feedback from some of my ClearSight consultant fellow team group members, squad. The next thing is the spiritual awakening process. This is the come back, Gim. I'm using a gimbal now. His name's Gim. Sometimes he likes to while out. Come on, come on. No. That's come back. Thank you. Come on. There we go. Sometimes he likes to while out, and or maybe he's picking up some good spirits, or just hanging out, some fairies. It's cool. You guys can hang out. Just take it easy, all right? This is the this is the roadmap basically for the spiritual awakening process. It is a kind of a culmination of being based on the hero's journey by what's his name, by the Joseph Campbell books, as well as a actual diagram that I found by this amazing woman named Lisa. She made the whole entire diagram of the hero's journey, and I basically took that, and then the other thing that I have, which is this spiritual awakening process. This is a great resource for anybody who's going through a spiritual awakening or ascension. I highly recommend it to you. Maybe I'll leave the link to the book in the description as well. It's by El I'm gonna mess up her name, and I do apologize. Miss Althea Althea Luna and Mateo Sol. Sorry about your name. They created this book, and they're great spiritual counselors. This book like basically gave me a good foundation of like understanding what the spiritual awakening process is, and then I also put in my own experiences and experiences that I've heard from other people. If you want this copy I did of the spiritual awakening process, kind of like the roadmap that I created, you can get it actually on my website. Don't take it or rip it from an Instagram. I posted a picture of it on Instagram today, so that way people could know, hey, I'm doing a video talking about the spiritual awakening process. I wouldn't take that one. It's probably not as good quality as you could get it. Get it from my website. It's completely free. On my PDF, I will put the link to that downloadable file in the description below, so you can just go ahead and pick it up. And if you want to download that and then kind of walk with me through the process as well, you can totally do that. You can take that resource and use it however may you see fit. So you can help somebody maybe who you maybe possibly could maybe going through a spiritual awakening themselves, and this is kind of a good roadmap. Another thing, and this is the last thing, everybody's spiritual awakening, like I said before, is different. So this roadmap may not exactly apply to you. Like I said, this is a very general beta version of the roadmap that I'm creating. I will be continuing I will continue to tweak it as time continues on. So we'll get to it because it's a lot to cover. My fiance said it was a lot the first thing that she saw, and I'm like, the spiritual awakening process is a lot. The cool thing, you can also kind of use this as a guide map for people who are going through their ascensions as well. I will be making a separate one for ascensions, just for ascensions, but I don't know when I'll do that. So first things first, when you first start off, the spiritual awakening process is basically, you get a call to action through your heart, through your soul, through your spirit. God, the universe, will call to you and say, hey, I don't think this is what you need to be doing. And you will sense it as well. And by sensing that, you'll basically have a disappointment with life. You'll have a call to awaken, or it'll be a refusal of the call. Now, this is where I'm going to be, another thing I plan on doing is called cycle theory, which I've been kind of testing and doing here and there. But basically, we are basically always on a similar timeline, you could say. Time is not linear, and we are always consistently going through the same cycle. The way that we can break through that cycle is by doing something different. However, if we don't do those things different, aka if you don't do the fucking work, then you get stuck on that cycle. Aka, for example, if you refuse the call, you're going to be in this cycle of being consistently called to do something and refusing it, and consistently, and you're going to be disappointed with life, just depressed, sad. I'm not saying that you may or may not, but that's kind of what the possibilities are if you don't do the work and if you refuse the call. You'll get stuck in a cycle. For many people, that's usually during their their like midlife crisis. That's kind of when people usually have their the spiritual awakenings, or right after they graduate high school. That's another time when people have their spiritual awakenings, like 18, 17. Some people have them earlier, some people have them later in life. It just depends on the individual. But if you get stuck in that cycle, then you cannot move forward, because the universe will consistently hit you with like, hey, you need to move. And if you don't do it, then you could get stuck in it for, years. Or you could, worst case scenario, you're stuck here for another lifetime. If you don't learn, then you don't get to continue moving on. Sometimes that's what happens. The next thing is, if you do accept the call, good for you, congratulations, you did the work. You start to maybe feel lost or confused of, what's been going on. You're like, oh my God, like why am I feeling these things? Why am I sensing these things? Why am I hearing things differently than I used to? People may start looking at you different. People may start acting like, hey, you've been acting kind of different. You don't really act the same like you used to. And that's sometimes that's what happens, and that's common. The next thing is the start and the beginning of the pursuit of knowledge. Now at this point, you are have answered the call of your soul, and so you start searching for things. You're still confused. You're like, why am I feeling this way? But that's part of the process. And if you're feeling confused, you're doing it right, especially in the beginning of the spiritual awakening process. As you continue doing that, you may meet a mentor, or you may have supernatural aid. The mentor could be anybody. I could be a mentor. Peace Dealer was a mentor of mine. One of my first mentors when I first got into my spiritual awakening, when I answered the call, I actually started getting into meditation, and I had no idea what the fuck meditation was. So as I continued learning about it, I discovered this amazing, beautiful man. Beautiful skin, smelling that good ass prana. Yeah, that's right. The man, the myth, the legend, Sunflower himself. Ralph Smart was my first my first mentor that I really found out, because I was looking up what meditation was and how to do it, and he was discussing about top 10 things that they don't tell you about meditation or something. It was one of his eye-catching gotcha titles, and I was like, oh, meditation's bad? What? And then it was all good shit. Anyway, so that's kind of the things that you'll have. You might not necessarily meet a physical mentor, but that's a possibility. Supernatural aid, that's another thing that you can have. Maybe you start seeing dreams, you start having visions. You might get saved or something. Maybe a car crash could happen and you don't get hit, and it's something snaps, and you're like, oh shit, this shit's real. The universe has my back. Whatever I'm doing, clearly I'm doing correctly. And then that is what goes into the next section, which is the start of trials. So start of trials are going to be spiritual warfare, mind-blowing information that you didn't expect, finding out that everything that has been a fucking lie up to this point, most likely. The fact that jet fuel can't melt steel beams, or stuff about the jab, which I don't want to talk about. I don't want to get in trouble. And then ascension system, the first of the ascension symptoms. So you might start getting headaches, you might start feeling, queasy, there's going to be certain physical ailments that you've never experienced. For example, for me, my recent spiritual ascension that I just kind of passed through, and I'm still kind of working through, I started getting allergies that I never had before. And it like I was having like really bad coughs and keep me up at night. I never had those. Yes, you could say it's allergies. Yes, you could say considered it, oh, well, you haven't been outside because, COVID or whatever, but I'm pretty active and I go outside and I go on walks with my fiance like every single day. I go for runs in the risings to absorb the sunlight as soon as I go out sometimes. So I didn't think it was that, and I was like, okay, well, the only thing I could think of is ascension symptoms. If A, B, and C doesn't match up, then it's got to be D. So yeah, then you hit the first threshold. The first threshold is crossing the first test, aka separation of self from the outer world. So at this point in time, there's two sections, and I put it in here. Hopefully Gim doesn't start freaking out. Come on, Gim. Come on. No, over here. Thank you, buddy. So here, as you can tell, there is two separate worlds. Kim's freaking out on me. He doesn't like paper, apparently. There is the outer world, or the outer world and the inner world. Those two worlds are basically, you could consider the outer world like the quote-unquote 3D real world, the world that you interact with as a physical human being, in this vessel. And then the inner world is what happens within your spirit, mind, body connection that is all happening within you, within your auric field. That is the inner world. So passing through that first threshold requires you to kind of go inside, go in depth of yourself. And that's basically kind of the part two. Part one is the call. Part two is the inner depths of self. You will definitely spend majority of your time in this section, which is the bottom half of the spiritual awakening process section. The next thing is after you've finished through that first test, you get your first rewards, which are really honestly one of the reasons why we go through spiritual awakenings in multiple ways. It's to awaken, it's to understand who we are, and most importantly, the first rewards that you're going to get are going to be new abilities, mindsets, beginning to understand self. You might start picking up on psychic signals. These are some of the beginnings of the rewards of the spiritual awakening, spiritual ascension process. You do the work, and for the first test, the universe is like, all right, you did the first test, good job. Here's a little bit of something, because I love you, because you're doing the work. After that, it's the beginning of the going into the descent of the abyss, which is the beginnings of shadow work. If you're not familiar with shadow work is semi-complex, but it's all about the dark night of the soul, which is basically deep diving within yourself and kind of understanding like the way that you tick with what goes on through your mind that you don't allow others to hear or listen to, and just kind of bringing awareness. That's the first step, is bringing awareness to, yes, I have quote-unquote unconscious bias. Yes, this is how I feel. Yes, these are things I don't want people to know about. That is the shadow self. Some people could consider that like your moon sign, your personality, what happens within your brain. After that, you will be even more confused. Surprised or not, if you haven't realized, this is kind of a theme for when it comes to spirituality. You will be, for every question that you have and you find the answer to that question, you will end up having two more questions afterwards. But that's like kind of the beautiful gift of learning and experiencing these beautiful esoteric, like this esoteric knowledge that is within yourself, and you just have to look within. After that, you kind of meet with your shadow self. You really get deep into like who you are as a shadow self. If you're familiar with any of the Legend of Zelda games, Shadow Link, that's just a person of him. It's kind of coming face to face with him. You put up a mirror and you're like, oh shit, I didn't know this person existed. I didn't know this person was me, but it is me. And it's awareness of it, like, oh crap, I can't believe I think this way. I know I think this way, but really seeing it and like really understanding and comprehending it is such a big, intense thing. The next thing is supernatural meetings. At this point, as you've been beginning the shadow work and you're doing the deep inner self work, if you maybe perhaps have had supernatural aid before in the past, kind of at the top or half of the core of the circle, you will begin to maybe start coming into contact with maybe deities, gods, voices, vibrations. These are the types of things. This is when you're going to start realizing that, fairies exist, angels exist. We work with one. If you're part of the Mystical Illuminations channel and the Peace Dealer, Archangel Uriel, like, angels exist. just not the way that they have been told to you that they exist. Like unicorns, dragons, like it all exists. Like it all exists. One of my spirit guides, and that I think that kind of goes into this. I think I feel called to talk about this. So one of my spirit guides is a Zhengxi. Zhengxi is a what you would call a Chinese jumping vampire. So that was my first spirit guide that I ever called to me. Like I did a spirit guide meditation, and I literally like a Zhengxi like face popped up into like my vision and like talked to me. I didn't remember what they said because it happened so fast, and I was like, "What the fuck's going on?" But it was an incredible experience, and I've had plenty of other supernatural meetings as time has continued on. The next thing is more rewards. As you've been doing some more work, you get more rewards. I put down here protection rituals. So maybe you'll understand maybe an old protection ritual that your ancestors have done, or maybe you'll discover one, by chance. Maybe it's through sage. Learning psychic protection shields. There's the it goes on and on. Palo Santo wood. Like there's a lot. There's so many different things for it. But that's kind of the thing. And now it's going through. Now you're halfway through, going through the second threshold. The second threshold is time to ascend back to the outer world with the newly discovered self and gifts. Now you've done a little bit of work, and now you understand who you are. Like I said, this is a spiritual awakening, not a spiritual ascension. So this is just for beginners. If you have an ascension, maybe it's, you come back through the gauntlet, and now you're learning more about it. I will do a video about spiritual ascensions, probably very much so later. This video is already going to be pretty long, a lot longer than I intended. The next thing is acceptance or refusal of return back to the outer world. This is the second time. So there's two points where you can get stuck in a cycle through this process. And this is all part of the test. This is all part of you breaking through and ascending to who you've always meant to become. The first part, like I said previously, is when you are called to do it or you refuse the call. The second part is now that you've done all the shadow work and you understand all these new esoteric things and you realize like everything you've been told is a fucking lie, you're like, why do I want to go back to the outer world? And that's when you kind of get into like the crazy quote unquote conspiracy theorists that like don't interact with other people. They're like, I don't trust anybody. No one understands me. Only me understands me, which is like partially correct. But you need to interact with other people. That's the only way you can grow as an individual as well. You gotta bounce back your vibrational levels. Of course, you need to make sure you're with safe people, but that's basically the whole premise of it. If you refuse the call to come back, because that's the other reason why we're sent here to do our spiritual awakenings, is for us to ascend to a higher level and then return with our newfound gifts, our newfound abilities, and our new higher vibrational state to help affect others, to help induce their own spiritual awakenings, to help raise the vibration and raise the frequency of the collective itself. I know that was really big. If you refuse it, then you get stuck in this darkness loop. And I've seen it happen where, there's people who are woke, quote unquote woke, but there's like really, really like low vibrational still, which doesn't, you would assume it doesn't make any sense, but that's what happens. You get stuck. It's kind of sad. The next thing is last of the confusion, and it's basically settlement of the original big question. So basically, you started off with like you're disappointed with life, and you start asking, why, why am I disappointed with life? And now you have to understand and settle the questions like, why am I disappointed with life? What's my biggest confusion? Which leads up to the next one is the realization and acceptance of the infinite universe and cycles. What I've come to understand is as I have continued my spiritual awakening journal, just my spiritual journey in general, every single time I learn something new, I realize how much I truly don't know and how impossibly huge the information of the planet, of the universe is. The cosmos is just so grand. And that thinking space is just incredible. So, realizing that it's okay to not know and understanding and accepting that the universe is going to bring that information to you when it's time for you to learn it. The next thing is, accepting of shadow self. Not everybody gets a chance to get to this point, maybe necessarily. Sometimes you might have to do some ascensions, quite a few, to get to that point. I know I had to. When I started off with like liking myself. I didn't like myself for quite a few years until like maybe like 6 years ago, and then I had to start, being okay and comfortable and like getting used to being like liking myself. After that, I got to the point of being able to say that I love myself. And that took a long time. That took a very long process. And part of that is accepting the shadow self, accepting that that is a part of me. And you don't have to do the full. You don't have to accept your whole self, because I'm sure when you go back and do the gauntlet again and again and again, which you will have to, you will begin to find more and more things about your shadow self and your shadow personality that you don't like to keep from others. Um, but you also have to realize that that shadow self is still you, and that's an important part of you. And if you use that, then you are just becoming a better version of yourself. It's important. And accepting of that shadow self is like the first step to implementing those abilities of what you've been trying to hide from other people. And that's kind of going on to the next part, which is beginnings of integration of new skills and abilities that you've learned from it. Now, you've at the third threshold. You're about to hit back into the outer world, the quote unquote real world. It's a full sent back. This is like, it's hard because now you have to take baby steps into it. When you go back into the outer world from the inner world, maybe you've secluded yourself, you've hashtag hermit carded yourself for like a good like several months or even years, depending on like where you've been at. Thankfully, I was very blessed to have my spiritual awakening with my twin flame and my life partner on this planet, and pretty sure my life partner in quite a few of my past lives. I've been blessed. I was very blessed to have that with me. Not everybody does. Now the next thing is, when you go to the outer world, you need to have regular new inner routine. You have to set a routine for yourself. You can't just go back to outer world, with these newfound gifts and abilities and not, bring a routine with you to continue to work on them and train them. Because if you don't, then, if you don't use it, you lose it. That's just basically it is. So it's continued meditation, shadow work, continued practice of new skills and abilities, whether that be through tarot readings, through meditation, through prayer, and continually doing shadow work. I do shadow work on a regular basis. Oh, that's right. That was one of the videos I was going to do. What I like to call pitch darkness shadow work, which is where I will discuss it in a couple of videos eventually. I have already a butt ton that I plan for the Mystical Illuminations channel, but that's kind of something that I do on a regular basis, or just meditating, doing shadow work, and like asking yourself, like, what do I need to learn? Like, what do I need to uncover today, and what do I need to grow in my life? That's something you can ask. And then coming to terms with newfound self and operating in an old world. Now you coming back, depending on how long you've been gone for, is going to be like kind of like a shock to your system and everybody else's. Your body may have not be able to kind of catch up. It needs your body may need to catch up to your newfound abilities through your spirit, your soul, and your mind. That happens quite a few times to me, where like my body is just like slowly, like I'll do something and then like a week later I can feel like the change in my body, like vibrationally level, like, oh right, this is who we are now. It happens, and coming to terms with that is really, really important. The next thing, and which is super, super intense, is the showdown, or the climax, the final test. And it is, who are you now? You will be challenged. I cannot stress this how many times. You will be fucking challenged when you come back from your inner world after you've done half the work. This is the last quarter of the spiritual awakening process. People are going to come to you. Things are going to happen to you. Situations are going to come across to you, and you're going to be forced to react to them. And they're going to be like, oh, but you were like this beforehand. Why aren't you like this now? People don't like change. I'll tell you this right now. People do not like change. And this is important, because this is part of the test. The universe is saying, like, how honest and how true to this new change are you? And you're going to have to stand up for yourself. And you might not have anybody to stand up for you during that point in time. It might happen like really quickly. It might even be subtly. You can be paying for something and somebody might ask you a question like, oh, what for me is like, what does that ankh represent? That happened to me. at a grocery store one time, and I explained to them, and they're like, wow, I've never heard anybody explain it to them. I've heard different things, but you're the first person that explained it the way that you explained it. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what I'm about. That's why I have it on my earring. That's why I have a ring with it. That's why I have it on my arm. I literally have a tablet on my arm. I'm about rebirth. That's why I have it all around me. It's not just what I represent, it's like who I am. And then, as I was talking about rebirth, that's the next part. Now that you've oh, my bad, sorry, go back. As you've had that final test, it's that public declaration of new self, of who you are. You may have to like post on social media and be like, hey, you know what? This is who I am now. Don't fuck with me. And you might have to unfriend some people. I had to do that. I was trigger happy with unfriend button not too long ago. I went from like 1,200 people to 600 people. That's just how it be sometimes. Then the rebirth, and then after that, you are now adept of two worlds and absolute integration. This is when you if you haven't done it already, you got to have full integration of like who you were of what you learned and uncovered of who you were in the past, or your inner self. The gifts that you always had, but you had to hide them because of some sort of situation or whatever you were previously. That's just one of the things that you have to do. Now you get to bring them to light, and you get to fully integrate them into your life forever, or at least until you go through the gauntlet again and find some new abilities and have to tweak yourself. That's how it always is. And then new life. That's the next part. Now you are a different person. If say you started off as Jerry during the disappointment with life, now you're Jer. I don't know if anybody else called Jer, but now you're Jer. That is like the new position that you're in. And through the fourth threshold, through that new life is new freedom that you now have to uncover and discover who you are now in this outer world and how you can affect other people and how you're going to be able to live the rest of your life. Thank you so much for watching this video. No, this was a lot longer than I intended. If I were you, just double speed it. It's kind of over now, so if you haven't already, I mean, if you send it to somebody, you can always tell them just double speed it. I talk pretty fast, so I don't know how well that worked, but I mean, if you're watching Archangel Mike, then I mean, he talks fast. A lot of us talk fast. It'd be like that. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. This, like I said before, is just kind of like a rough draft or a beta kind of version of like what the spiritual awakening process could possibly look like for somebody. You might have in different stages, different things happen to you, and that's totally fine. That's totally fair. This is, like I said, just a simple roadmap for you to kind of understand like where you're at in your process and like where you're going and where maybe you need to be going. Like I said before, I am a spiritual awakening and spiritual ascension life coach. So I will work with you through this process and kind of like help guide you through where you think you need to be going at. You can find me on the you can book sessions with me down below. There's links to all the sessions and whatnot you can do through me. If you want to find out more about my practice, my website link is also there. You can find out more information there. If you go to my website and you see the link for the Spiritual Awakening Process PDF, I also have other materials there that you can download, which are completely free. I have a time blocking worksheet there that you can use. I have this one called it's like a self check-in, where it asks you like simple questions for you to kind of really understand like where you're at where you're at in the present, where you'd like to be, and then what is stopping you, and kind of come up with your own game plan yourself on how to get through that position. I'm also, real quick before I end this, I am thinking and considering of doing a live, and we'll kind of go through the super chat. I'm kind of aiming for the 27th, so like 2 Sundays from now, to kind of like go hand in hand with you guys. I know my prices can be a little bit, they are pricier, but my life coaching costs that much money because of just how it is. And I'll probably do a video of like meet the readers for me, where I kind of go in depth of like who I am, what I'm about, and like, pricing and all that good shit. And kind of like give you kind of like a overview of like what you can expect from me as a life coach, and what to expect through my life coaching sessions, just in general. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, so the live, I want to be able to give back to you guys, because I really appreciate all the help. Oh, I didn't get a chance to say thank you. I'm so sorry. That's my bad. I'm super, super grateful for all the love and support that you guys have given me for my first video that I post on here. I've done YouTube before. It's never been that awesome. I've never had that many views. I've never had that many likes. I've never had that many comments. It's really quite an honor to have all of you guys like talking about it, and I'm really happy to be able to help assist you guys with that. Talking with you guys. I promise you, this is probably the only video that will be 30 minutes long on the Mystical Illuminations channel. Just because like, I don't plan on keeping them that long, but it is what it is. I needed to talk. Somebody clearly needed to hear it, and I'm happy to be there for you guys. So right, the live that I'm planning on doing on the 27th is basically going to be kind of like a meet and greet. I'll talk a little bit about myself more so, and then we're gonna go into kind of like me working with you live through some of your things. The way it'll work will basically for this first live, it'll basically be a donation of any money. You can donate like a cent, a penny. You can donate more. It'd be really nice through the super chat or through Cash App. I'll also have my Cash App at on there, and I'll probably put it here if you want to give me some donation, help me out through my processes as well to help make sure that I'm staying strong and learning as much as I can about the spiritual awakening process to help other people. Basically, you just will send me whatever money you have, and I will basically kind of work with you on that question that you have. So say you're like I'm having trouble trying to figure out like how to get through this aspect of my shadow self, and I'll go a little bit into it during the video. That's basically how the live will work. I may do a little short video more talking about it more later, but let me know if that's something that would interest you guys. If it is, then it's on the 27th. If not, I'll probably still do it because it seems like something that'll be kind of fun for me to try out. Other than that, thank you all so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you next week. Peace.